At his nephew's graduation, he handed over a custom drone worth $950. The kid grinned. Dad says if you vanished, no one would care. 30 relatives laughed, except him. That night, he shut off their utilities, credit, and debt payments, packed a bag, left without a word. Days later, they opened the black suitcase he'd left. The joke hit like a slap. The worst part wasn't that it was cruel, it was that everyone laughed. My name's Marcus. I'm 42 years old, living in Denver, Colorado. I run a mid-sized drone tech company downtown, and for the past 10 years, I've been the unofficial bank account for my entire family. Not out of guilt, out of some misplaced sense of loyalty I'd carried since I was a kid. But that Saturday? That was the last time I'd ever played that role. It was my nephew Tyler's high school graduation party, one of those backyard affairs with rented tents and overcooked burgers. My brother Rick's house was packed. Cousins, old neighbors, friends of friends. And of course, my mother was there, parked at the patio table like royalty in a lawn chair, watching everything like she owned it all. I showed up with a wrapped black box, inside a custom-built drone I'd worked on myself. Cost me just under $1,000. GPS-stabilized, HD camera, even real-time VR feedback. Tyler had always been into that stuff. I handed it to him during the gift-giving circle. The kid's eyes lit up, his grin stretching wide as he ripped the paper. "No way," he said, holding up the sleek black drone. "Uncle Marcus, this is sick." I smiled genuinely. For once, I thought I got it right. Then Tyler turned to the crowd, still grinning. "My dad says Uncle Marcus could disappear tomorrow and no one would notice." Laughter exploded, like someone had just told the greatest one-liner of the year. Rick stood off to the side, arms folded, grinning like he'd just scored a touchdown. My mom sipped her lemonade and gave a faint nod, barely noticeable, but I caught it. That subtle little smirk of approval. The kind she only gave when one of her favorites landed a punch. I didn't laugh. I tried. I kept my mouth stretched into that awkward, frozen smile people wear when they've been sucker-punched in public. Then I saw Tyler glance at me. Confused, maybe? Maybe not. The laughter died down. Conversations moved on. The party kept rolling, but I stood there, holding an empty gift bag and something sour in my throat. No one came up to say thanks. No one checked on me. Not even my mother, who turned back to a story about her gardenias like nothing had happened. I left 20 minutes later. Slipped out the gate, barely noticed. That drive home was quiet. Just me, the hum of my engine, and a thought I hadn't known I'd been brewing. Let them figure it out without me. No more college fund deposits. No more co-signed cards. No more emergency rent money, last-minute bailouts, or "can you just cover this until Friday" texts. They wouldn't see it coming, but they'd feel it. And when they did, maybe, just maybe, they'd finally realize who'd been keeping their circus running all these years. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't rage or cry or stare at the ceiling like people do in movies. I just got home, set my keys on the counter of my high-rise condo, and started thinking with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't revenge I was after. I just wanted out. First thing I did was pull out my laptop. I logged into the bank's portal and started shutting things down. The credit card I co-signed for Rick and his wife canceled. Auto payments on my mother's utilities gone. Shared health insurance I'd been paying since my sister's layoff 3 years ago terminated. One by one, I unplugged every financial cord tying me to them. I didn't text, didn't warn them. No dramatic speeches, just quiet erasure. Then I stood up and walked to the closet, grabbed the black duffel bag I used for business trips and started filling it. Essentials only: my laptop, external hard drives, passport, a few sets of clothes, my watch collection, a couple of family documents I'd need if things got legally messy. Then I went into the hall closet and pulled out an old black suitcase. Scuffed edges, torn handle wrap. It had been my dad's once. He left it behind when he moved out. I'd kept it, not sure why. Now I knew. I opened it on the bed and began loading it with files. Stacks of receipts, bank statements, printed screenshots, copies of text messages. Every transaction, every favor, every transfer I'd made over the last 15 years. Rick's mortgage late notices I covered. Emily's therapy fund that turned out to be a trip to Tulum. Mom's car repair I paid twice for, once to the shop and again after she claimed they'd screwed it up. I organized it with tabs. Red for Rick, blue for Mom, yellow for Emily. On top, I placed a handwritten note. "You always said I was lucky, but really you were." Around 4:30 in the morning, I slid the suitcase into my car trunk. Denver was still dark. The streets quiet. I drove the old route back to the house I grew up in, a faded green ranch in Arvada with the same cracked driveway and sun-bleached lawn gnome by the mailbox. I didn't ring the bell. I just stepped inside the unlocked foyer, placed the suitcase gently by the coat rack, and walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't wait for someone to find it. By the time the sun rose, I was halfway across the state line. Gone, just like they always joked I could be. I woke late, around 10. The sun was already burning through the floor-to-ceiling windows in my condo, lighting up the living room like a stage. My phone was still face down on the coffee table exactly where I'd left it the night before. It hadn't rung yet. That surprised me. I made coffee, sat on the couch, turned on the TV just for the background noise, but I wasn't watching. I was waiting for the sound of someone banging on the door or for my phone to start lighting up like it used to whenever someone needed a bailout. It started around noon. The pounding, fists slamming against the metal security door loud enough to make the hallway echo. I didn't get up. I already knew who it was. Marcus. That voice, raspy, forceful, already shaking with more than just anger. Open the damn door. I sipped my coffee. Boy, don't make me call building security. You think this is funny? Cutting off the insurance? The power? What the hell's wrong with you? Then his voice cracked. Not like he was sad, more like he wasn't used to not being in control. You've lost your damn mind. I muted the TV. Didn't say a word. Then came the voicemails. My phone buzzed 5 times in a row before I even picked it up. Mom, Marcus, I don't know what's going on, but I woke up and the lights were off. Can you please just call me? Rick, real cute, man. You trying to prove a point? My wife's crying. You feel good about that? Emily, my sister-in-law, I know things are tense right now, but Tyler's really confused. He asked if you're okay. Please call me. I blocked Rick first, then Mom, then Emily, quietly, without fanfare, like I was unsubscribing from junk mail. Around 6 that evening, the doorman buzzed. Mr. Reed? Your father's trying to get in. Says it's urgent. I took a breath. Tell him I'm not available. A pause. Sir, he just came up. Said he had a key. I stood. Cold crept into my spine. Sure enough, I heard the lock twist a second later. My father shoved the door open, stormed inside like he paid the rent. What the hell are you pulling, Marcus? I stayed calm. Put the key down. You don't live here. He held it up like a trophy. Your mother had it. In case of emergencies. This is not an emergency. This is consequences. His face flushed deep red. You're punishing us? Over a joke? A damn joke from a kid. I stepped forward close enough to make him pause. That kid repeated what you said. And everyone laughed. He sneered. So now what, you're cutting off your own family? You think they need you? I nodded. That's exactly what I think. He looked around at the silence, the clean walls, the thick, locked security door behind him. No one here to back him up. No leverage. Just me. Get out, I said. He didn't move. So I walked over to the keypad on the wall and hit the emergency override. A loud beep. Seconds later, building security showed up at the door. Sir, the taller one said, already reaching for his shoulder. You need to leave. My father stared at me like I just shot him in the chest. I didn't flinch. Didn't say another word. He left. I closed the door. This time, I locked it with my own code. And just like that, I was done. By the next morning, the whole thing had spilled past the family. The silence I'd given them? It was pushing them to make noise elsewhere. It started with my office. Marcus, my assistant said, peeking into my doorway with a strained look. There's a man downstairs asking for you. Says he's your brother. I didn't even look up from my screen. Is security handling it? They're on their way, she said. He's kind of loud. I sighed. Saved my draft. Okay, let me know when they've got him out. Turns out Rick had shown up at the front desk of the tech firm I co-founded in a half-buttoned shirt and yesterday's anger still clinging to him. He was ranting about how I'd abandoned the family, demanding to speak to the board like he even understood what that meant. Security walked him out. Politely, professionally. But not before a few smartphones came out in the lobby. The front desk girl told me later, he said you'd regret this. That your whole company's built on a lie. A lie. That one made me laugh. I'd built this company from a 2-bedroom apartment and 3 maxed-out credit cards. Rick had once said I'd never survive without his grounded perspective. Right? By noon, I got a call from my landlord. His tone was hesitant, like he didn't want to have this conversation. Marcus, we've been contacted by a woman claiming to be your mother. She says you're experiencing a breakdown and that we should check on your unit. I let the silence hang. She also mentioned possible criminal activity, he added carefully. I'm not accusing you of anything, I just thought you should know. I rubbed my temples. Thanks for letting me know. You won't be hearing from them again. They were spiraling, and it was getting messy. Later that night, I took the elevator up to my rooftop, stood there in the cool Denver air with a tumbler of bourbon, and watched the lights flicker across the city. Cars crawling like fireflies. The world kept spinning. I wasn't surprised when the messages slowed down after that, but I knew what came next. They opened the suitcase. I imagined the scene, probably sometime mid-afternoon in the house I grew up in. Rick pacing in front of the couch. My mom sitting in her robe. Emily clutching a mug of cold tea, pretending it didn't burn. They'd stare at it first. That old suitcase so out of place in the foyer. Maybe they thought it was a prank or a trap. But then they'd open it, and inside, the truth. folders color-coded, labeled, mortgage payments, Rick, medical copays, Mom, private school deposits, Emily, utility statements, car payments, bail transfers, all dated, all signed, all mine. On top of it all, a single typed page. Everything you pretended I didn't do. No commentary, no accusation, just receipts. Years of them. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't fought. I documented. I left them exactly what they needed. A mirror. And mirrors never lie. It didn't take long for their world to crack. Once the suitcase was opened, the family group chat went dead. Not a single message, not a single call. Just silence that reeked of panic. They finally realized what they were without me. Underwater. And now they were sinking. The first to go was Rick. A week after the suitcase, I heard through an old high school friend that Rick had blown up at work. Something about a missed deadline, a customer complaint, and him snapping in the middle of a morning meeting. He'd shoved a coffee mug across the conference table and told his boss to go screw himself. They escorted him out before lunch. Fired on the spot. A few days later, I got a passive-aggressive message on LinkedIn. A connection request. No note, just his name and a blank expression staring back at me. I declined. Then came Mom. She sent the first letter to my building. Handwritten in blue ink. Addressed like it was from a pen pal instead of the woman who'd stood by while I was laughed out of her living room. Marcus, sweetheart, we're all hurting, but families go through things. Be the bigger person. I didn't reply. She sent another the next week. This time thicker, with old family photos stuffed between folded notebook pages. A picture of me at age 10 with a cheap paper crown on my head. My birthday, the caption on the back, my special boy. I stared at it for a long minute, then tossed it into the shredder. Rick's credit tanked next. Apparently he tried to open a new line using Mom's address and got flagged for fraud. The house phone rang off the hook with collection agencies. I wasn't there, but I could imagine it. Rick yelling through the receiver while Mom paced in the kitchen, clutching her temples like it was my fault. Emily called me once. I didn't answer, but I read her voicemail. Marcus, I don't even know how bad it's gotten. The landlord just handed us an eviction notice. Tyler's been sleeping on the couch at my sister's. Please, just talk to me. I didn't. The temptation to feel sorry for them, it crept in sometimes. Late at night, when the city was quiet and my phone didn't buzz anymore. But then I'd remember that party, that moment, that laugh, and the sick feeling would burn again. They had built their lives on my back. I was the net they never looked at because they thought it would never snap. Now it had, and the fall was theirs alone. I made breakfast, took walks, learned to sit in silence without dread curling in my chest. And through every eviction, every job lost, every broken down car and maxed out card, I stayed silent. They had finally learned what my absence really meant. Not anger, not revenge, just nothing. I saw him before he saw me. It was a gray Thursday afternoon, clouds hanging low, threatening rain. I was walking back from the corner cafe with a sandwich in hand when I spotted him near the garage entrance of my building. Dad, leaning against the brick wall like he didn't quite have the strength to stand straight. He looked thinner, smaller. His jacket hung off him like it belonged to someone else. I hadn't seen him in nearly 2 months. He watched the cars pass, arms crossed like it might keep him warm. When he finally noticed me, he stood upright fast, like he'd rehearsed it, like this moment was the big one. I kept walking, didn't change pace. We met just before the garage door slid open behind me. Marcus. His voice cracked on the second syllable. I didn't stop, but I didn't rush either. I just looked him in the eye. You really gonna keep pretending we're strangers now? He said, stepping in front of me. I stopped. Weren't you the one who said I could disappear and no one would notice? I asked. That was a joke. I cut in. Yeah, I heard. He ran a hand through his hair. Look, I know things got out of hand. I raised an eyebrow. Out of hand? Is that what you call years of me paying your bills while you looked through me like I was some kind of useful mistake? His jaw tensed. We were under pressure. The family needed. No, I said. You needed, and I gave. And when I stopped, you didn't crumble, you collapsed. He stepped forward, face hardening. You think this makes you strong? Turning your back on your own blood. Turning my back, I said, was the only way to stand up. Then he did something I didn't expect. He swung. A slow, wide, tired punch. I didn't even move, just watched it coming. It brushed the side of my shoulder, weak and clumsy, like he'd already given up halfway through. He stumbled back, breathing hard. I didn't flinch, didn't touch him, just looked at him like he was a stranger in the street. "You don't have power anymore," I said. "Not here, not with me." He slumped against the wall, chest rising and falling like he'd just run a mile. "I needed you," he whispered. I stepped past him and into the garage. "You needed a puppet." I cut the strings. As the garage door began to close, I turned back one last time. He looked up, eyes hollow, face empty, like a ghost watching the living walk away. And that's exactly what I did. It's been 7 months since I walked away. The silence I used to dread, I live in it now. And for the first time in my life, it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like peace. No buzzing phone. No emergencies disguised as quick favors. No hollow birthdays or guilt-laced holiday invites. Just me, a clean apartment, and mornings that belong to me and no one else. At first, I didn't know what to do with the space. I'd wake up expecting something, a message, a knock, a plea, but it never came. And slowly, my body started to let go of the tension it had carried for years. My shoulders dropped. My breath slowed. I started walking the city. Denver's a different place when you're not racing between obligations. I found quiet bookstores tucked behind art galleries, hidden bakeries with fresh bread at 8 a.m., and coffee shops where no one knows my name or needs anything from me. I've been investing again, not in people but in myself. I hired a trainer, started reading more, took a weekend trip to Santa Fe and didn't tell a soul. The old apartment still feels like home, not because of what's in it, but because it's mine. Fully, completely, finally mine. Sometimes I pass by places that used to mean something. The college fund office where I'd stop to drop off checks. The clinic where I paid mom's overdue copays. Rick's old car shop, closed now, the windows dusty and dark. They don't sting anymore. They don't make me angry. They just don't matter. Last week, I walked past the electronics store where I'd picked up Tyler's drone. The display had newer models now, smaller, flashier. I paused, looked through the glass, and kept walking. 2 blocks down, I saw a street musician. He couldn't have been more than 20. Beat-up guitar, duct tape on the case, voice cracking on the high notes, but something about it was raw, real. I stood there for a while, hands in my coat pockets, just listening. He finished his song and nodded at me, hopeful but not begging. I pulled out a 20 and dropped it into his case. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. He looked up. "Thanks, man." I smiled. "Keep going." And I walked on. No one was waiting on the other end. No one expecting a receipt. No one to answer to but myself. The chapter was closed. The noise was gone. And in its place, I found something better. Silence. Mine.